Thank you, Neil. And for those who want to hear more from him, I encourage you to watch his TED Talk, How to Stop the Next Pandemic, Stop Deforestation, for more snippets of wisdom. But don't do that just yet, because we're going to go onto our panel, which includes someone who canoed from a glacier to the Mediterranean, someone working on environmental DNA, and a leading voice in a transition towards organic agriculture. You are in for another treat. Please join me in welcoming on stage Rémi Camus, an explorer, committed athlete who undertakes extreme expeditions to raise awareness about environmental issues. You can sit, whichever one you prefer. Windi, who is the founder and CEO of Resistomap, a biosecurity company providing end-to-end solutions to monitor environmental biological threats, including AMR, genes, and pathogenic bacteria. And Laure Verdeau, also on stage, a food industry specialist who has supported hundreds of small and medium-sized enterprises in their development strategy, but also the most recent director of Agence Bio. Let's kick off this journey. Rémi, let me start with you. I mentioned already you took a canoe from a glacier to the Mediterranean, covering 800 kilometers, I believe, and taking over 150 samples of water. Why did you do this, and what did you find?
In 2023, I crossed the Mediterranean Sea, and I started to work with a lab to collect samples about the PFAS. We got some information interesting, but wanted to get something more. So we decided to do our expedition on the Rhone River from the glacier all the way to the Mediterranean Sea, because we wanted to do a mapping of the PFAS. And we did 150 samples from the top to the Mediterranean Sea. And the thing which was interesting is that we found the smaller one at the top of the glacier, 150 nanogram of PFAS, which is normally free because there is no industry over there, and we found it. So that was just our beginning of the journey, and everything carried on like this all the way to the Mediterranean Sea with a lot of pollutant.
Wow, that was less than 3 minutes. Thank you, Rémi.
I know, but I want to get more things after.
You'll speak longer later.
Yes,
great. I think Windi has the same. So Rémi has explained why he does what he does. Can you give us a glimpse into your world? Specifically, what do you do with Resistomap, and how can this DNA technology give us early signals for our health and the health of our planet?
Yes, unfortunately here that another emerging pollution in the environment is antibiotic resistant, and so how we use eDNA technology or environmental DNA technology to see the signal of this bacterial pollution. Let me just an analogy. When you feel not good, you go to hospital, right? You get the laboratory test, and then the laboratories will tell that whether you have the bacterial load above the healthy level. So it means that you are sick and infected. So it's the same what we do. We basically collect water sample from rivers, lakes, wastewater, soil, even air. And then we measure in the lab to see whether the bacterial levels is above the environmental level. At Resistomap, we've been around for 7 years, so we have analyzed for more than 32,000 samples across 58 countries, so we have the baseline level. And that's why by measuring this, we can see whether there's a level of bacterial pollution in the environment above of the environmental baseline. So because, you know, if we don't see, if we don't measure, how we can solve the problem, right? Like it's the same with you.
Yeah, a lot of science behind what you both said. Laure, let me come to you. You call yourself, well, when you were talking, you said you're an organic martyr. Maybe you can explain that a little bit more as well. But what can you tell us about this category of organics? What are its contributions, but also its shortcomings?
Well, for those who read the French press, I've been fired because I was a former head of Agence Bio. Agence Bio had 3 missions: financing organic sector, measuring how organic farming and food was performing, and also communicating. And I think I did that too well, because in France we like organic to be kept as a niche. But the thing is, antibiotics, for instance, is nowhere in the French debate, but it starts emerging. The first driver of organic food consumption usually is my health or planet health. But the thing is, antibiotics is the first driver of some consumers in some countries. For instance, Switzerland. They eat their poultry and their pig meat only from organic when they can. That's the first product they buy, because they are stressed about not being cured, because we don't have any development of new antibiotics. So my job, I think, now that I am independent, is defending what is and explaining what is organic, because consumer, you often hear that consumer, they vote with their wallet, they vote with what they buy. You cannot vote if you don't know what is behind the label. And so my job, I think, as a citizen and former professional, is to explain what is behind organic. And what is behind organic? Then you have everything summed up in that book. That is En finir avec les idées fausses, not an English version yet. I hope that the next director will do so. And also, it explains that when you raise cattle in organic methods, no antibiotics is authorized, unless, of course, if the cow gets injured and then gets fever, then we're going to cure them, because animal welfare is key. But for instance, antibiotics is a key response to One Health globally, and nobody knows that on the organic label level.
And for those who don't speak French, that book, En finir avec les idées fausses, is to finish with like false ideas,
Yes.
right? So hopefully it will be translated, but if you want to read some French, I will definitely be trying to look for it. Let me come back to you, Rémi. Some of us don't know or didn't know what PFAS was before this panel, maybe. Why is it a major environmental and health issue? And can you tell us more about what you found in the lake?
Well, when I start in 2023, this expedition on the Mediterranean Sea, I didn't know what was the meaning of PFAS, these 4 letters. And actually, you find this kind of molecular in many, many things. You can find it in clothes, you can find it in industry for the army, you can find it on the plane. It's quite really interesting. It was created in 1938 first, and then after they use it in many, many things. And we had a big thing coming up in France a couple of years ago. And it's regarding this thing that we decided to do our expedition on the Rhone River. When we started our journey, we didn't know what we're going to find on the river. I knew that we're going to find some stuff, because when you are in Lyon, you know it's a physics valley that you got like companies they are making this kind of PFAS, but we didn't know where we're going to find it. When we start on the glacier, I thought everything was free of PFAS. So we did 2 samples on the glacier, and the 2 that we made, the one 2,850 meters high, there were no single trace of PFAS, nothing. We did another one at 2,500 meters high, and we didn't find anything. But we found them on the lake at the bottom of the glacier, 150 nanogram of PFAS, which was really interesting because there were no industry around, there were nothing. So when I asked the director of the lab where could be the origin of this PFAS, and he was like, because it's the smaller one, it could just be carrying in the air and end up in the lake. And I thought at the beginning it could be from the ski resort, because the glacier was they could use it for a ski resort a couple of years ago. And they stopped that. So we know that it's not about that, but it's just probably coming from all the climatization that you could find in the air. So all of that end up in the river and slowly go all the way down. When you are in the Lake of Geneva, for example, Léman, it's one of the biggest lake in Europe, and a lake coming from the glacier. And in this lake, we found a high level of this kind of pollution, the TFA, which is quite relevant because the lake needs 10 years if you just open the dam to just get rid of all the water. So because of that, you can see that in every town, slowly, the pollution is just getting higher and higher all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. And that obviously affects all the human health, because all of that, it's a threat, it's a really important thing, and we need to highlight this pollution soon, because people, they need to know what it is, because you can't see. Like when I remember the first sample in the glacier, I filled up my sample and the water was like this, really. Trust me, it was like this. Clear, perfect, nice, and I was just like, how come in this water we can find some pollution? And we finished the journey in the Mediterranean Sea, and the sample was the same thing, the same color, but the pollution was not the same. So it's really important that people understand that it's not because you don't see it that it won't affect you.
That's true. I come from Peru, where oftentimes I'm on beaches and I'm picking up plastic and it's very visible. And a few years ago, I was in Geneva and some young people told me, hey, we should go do a cleanup of the lake. I was like, your lake is so clean, guys. Like,
It's not
but
that
actually,
clean.
it's not
that clean.
necessarily. And we still picked up things, of course there's stuff that's invisible.
If I could just carry on this, I remember my teacher when I was 8 years old. She said one thing to me, and I remember because we were in the classroom, and she said, the plastic need 400 years to just disappear. And I was like, 400 years? Well, it's not that long. Oh, it's fine. Okay. And it took me a couple of years to understand that she was missing one thing. It takes 400 years to disappear from your eyes. But it's still here.
Yeah.
It's getting very, very small, but it's still here. And this is what we were working. And obviously, I wouldn't be able to do this adventure, this journey, without labs. Because if you just collect samples like this and it's clear, you're like, well, it's good. And then you need labs to make sure that it's completely contaminated with pollutant.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah, and you can also find stuff in your blood now if you're doing tests and stuff like that.
Yes.
One of the facts that I learned very young was that we eat 1 credit card of plastic a week. I was like, a credit card? Like, I'm not actually eating it, but we do have it in our bodies. So maybe talking about what's in our bodies, Laure, let me come to you. You talk specifically about pesticides and making sure that organic foods are available and giving a chance to consumers. Why do you believe so firmly in the right to organic foods?
Well, the thing is, organic production, so that everybody has in mind the key pillars, is no pesticides from synthetic chemistry. It means that you have pesticides in nature, natural substance that can help you to prevent your crop to be attacked. But synthetic, the one that is been invented with the World War I and II, is not allowed in organic food and farming. The second thing is that pesticides, they are just like your PFAS. They are odorless, invisible, so people don't worry about that. And what is very important in food and organic farming is that you don't have any herbicides. Herbicides are key because glyphosate is the first cause when you close a captation area for tap water. The first cause is glyphosate because it's massively used, and glyphosate is obviously forbidden in organic, but any herbicides, because in organic you have to work, you have to put every adventice by yourself, every weed by yourself, and also no antibiotics. So it means that every acre that is conducted in organic farming method, it's less pollution in your area. So many people tell me in France, because in France we're going backwards in organic market. We only eat 6% of our food. We only buy 6% of our food budget in organic, which puts the France at the same level of the US. And I know that French people in the room will be like, oh, but we are the country of the gastronomy. We cannot do that. Yes, we don't eat that much organic food. And the thing is, many people say, well, it's for bobo, it's for well-off people. No, it's not. It has to be accessible to everyone, geographically and economically, because every cow that is fed in organic, that is raised in organic method, must eat 100% organic food. And this organic food must come from the area. So it's local food, local organic food for food cattle. And it means that it's less importation of soya food for cattle food. So every acre that is conducted in farming, in organic farming, is a benefit. It's a public services. It has a return on investment that is huge. So when people say, oui, but the organic carrot is 40 cents more expensive. Well, the thing is, if you want to buy the carrot, the local carrot, because it's the very tendency now to be locavore. If you want to eat an organic carrot and you tell me, well, I don't care if it's organic because I know the guy and I know that it's local, it's better to take local products instead of organic farming from away. No, it's not, because he's not your neighbor. When he's treating his field with glyphosate or anything that is forbidden in organic food farming, then you will find it 12 years later in the the water, in the tap water. So it means that those who are polluting, they are never paying for the depollution, but we are paying in France for all the depollution. Every citizen in every country is paying for the depollution of tap water. So in France, there is something that is like a discrepancy between what we do as citizens and what we do as consumer. So my main message would be, yes, if you can, eat as much organic as possible, because it's the only organic, the organic label is the only one that is guaranteed by public powers. It's like a degree, a diploma, where I be defiant towards a label that are not defined, that are not controlled. Organic food is controlled every year by independent evaluation body. So every acre that is conducted in organic farming is of public interest. So I do not think that those arguments from people who say, no, but organic won't save the planet. Well, let organic give a chance, because it's only 2% of the global farming areas. And please don't be betrayed and lured by organic, by labels that are not organic and not defined. I mean, for instance, regenerative agriculture at the beginning was organic regenerative agriculture. But then it moved to only regenerative, and nobody defined it. But I don't know if you can regenerate if you don't forbid absolutely glyphosate, for instance.
I didn't know that change of definition. Very interesting. I'm learning a lot on stage. I'm sure those of you in the audience too. Let me come back to you, Windi, where we all kind of started. Rivers. I said they're polluted in my country. Rémi's seen them polluted here, and you've also seen them polluted. You've seen the tangible work on rivers in your country too. Can you tell us more about the studies that you did in Indonesia and what solutions this has led to?
Yeah, so this is like the original story, like how I built the company Resistomap. I'm originally from Indonesia, so not from Finland. And I learned my PhD on antibiotic resistance. So that's why you mentioned about the antibiotic. Yes, antibiotic used in human and animals, right? And then when antibiotic we consume, resistant bacteria will develop. And then there's release to the wastewater through in animal through the manure, and then, move to ecosystem through this food system or through the wastewater. Everything will end up in our river, right? Because of the water. And this is one of the reasons why when I learned about the resistant bacteria, so it's when I mentioned about the bacterial pollution, one of the big example is this resistant bacteria. This is one of the global problem. Like you mentioned, if antibiotics didn't work anymore in human and animals, then nothing we can do, right, if there is a bacterial disease. So it's the silent pandemic in this case. And when I study in Finland, of course, this is great. I have the access to the technology. The environmental DNA technology is a bit advanced because you you collect the sample and extract the DNA from those environmental samples. So it requires a bit advanced technology here. And then I want to bring those technology to my home country in Indonesia. So after my PhD, I did my postdoc in Indonesia, where we study antibiotic-resistant pollution in river. So we collect sample from spring water, where the source of the water, and then follow the river flow, where there is an impact from rural area, cattle farms. Definitely use antibiotics, unfortunately, even though in the rural regions. And then the chicken slaughterhouse, and then there's a hospital, and also the city. It's different in Europe, where the wastewater are released in the sewer system, and there is a wastewater treatment plant. But in many countries, there is no access to the sewer system. Many wastewater from the people are released directly to river, unfortunately. So we measure also in the city, where those wastewater end up in the river, up to the estuary, freshwater and seawater. So I like to see the difference between freshwater river and ocean, like salt water. In the spring water, wonderful. There are bacteria, of course, bacteria are everywhere. There are bacteria, but not resistant bacteria. Not the one that clinically relevant to resist bacteria. So this is very important to remember that in our nature, there are bacteria, there are resistant bacteria, but like low level. That's, I think, the aim, right? We want to reach also with the organic. So I believe this is like the aim. But then as soon as there's a cattle farm, there are like more than 200 different resistant bacteria we found. I'm talking about like very 10, 20 cattle, not even the intensive care cattle farms. And then chicken slaughterhouse is worse. It's like more than 300 different kind of resistant bacteria found. Because chicken, literally the one that use different kind of antibiotics. Hospital, wastewater from hospital, even though there's a treatment plan, but many wastewater treatment are not designed to remove bacterial pollution. So those also end up in the river. They are not so much different. It's very focused on the one that resistant to antibiotic that we use in hospital, but the amount is just really like 10,000 times. And then in the river, like in the city, the one that wastewater from our household is like as high as swine farms, wastewater from swine farms. Can you imagine the river as a pollution as level as a wastewater from swine farms? But you don't see those pollution, right? Because they're bacteria, like PFAS, like pesticide. We don't see them. So this is why we kind of didn't realize maybe until you get infected with this resistant bacteria, you go to hospital, unfortunately no more antibiotics work for you, and we die, literally. And then we have the idea, right? Nature can heal. That's true. Like especially big river, indeed they can heal itself, but it's not enough capacity if the pollution is too big. So this is one of the reasons. Even we can see in the estuary, we can still detect the resistance, even in the seawater when the high salinity. So this means that bacteria, when we pollute the environment, like the bacterial pollution as I mentioned, they can persistent even in the estuary, in the seawater. And this is why very important for me, like we need to see this pollution, right? When we can see, when we can measure, we can have a better intervention to minimize, mitigate. We cannot get rid of them, unfortunately, not yet, maybe with our knowledge, but at least we can work together to minimize the spread and the pollution of this resistant bacteria using the One Health approach. It's really needed because antibiotic used in human, in animals, everything will end up in our environment, and this is why the One Health approach is needed to tackle this antibiotic resistant issue. So when you learn about antibiotic resistance, you might think, oh, I don't use antibiotic, this is hospital problem, or if you're a farmer, it's animal problem, but it's not. It's actually, our problem together as a One Health. So I like, Neil, your talk that we not the high level. We are part of the ecosystem, right? Including the bacteria in our body, in animals and the environment. The bacteria are interconnected as a One Health. So this is why I'm happy to be part of this One Health approach. And I hope that all of us now, after this session, we have a mindset that One Health approach is needed to tackle all of these cases. Yeah.
I was in a session yesterday. It was a film of children, 8 children that did a trip around Europe, and they were talking to decision makers about nature. And one of the kids was like, "Why do you say go out in nature? We are already nature. So why are we going out in it if we are already?" And this is a child that's 8 years old. So it very much resonates with what you said now.
Maybe because we are missing the connection.
We are missing the connection.
A
Yeah,
lot.
and the child on stage who's only 13 said we should do more bloom scrolling instead of doom scrolling. So we should all be doing that after we leave this room. But we still have time for one more question. I'd love for us to be able to take away something that we can do after this. What comes next? In 1 minute or 2, actually, we have maybe 2 minutes each. We have a little bit extra time. What can you tell us on PFAS? What should happen next? What are you working
The next thing is that we need to get more sensibilization, education about this kind of molecular that we don't see. Once a month, I do some trash collection with kids nearby where I live. And I remember once, they were just picking up a big battery from a truck, and they were like, "Rémi, come, we find something really interesting." And I was like, yes, that's really interesting, because the things that are inside, the acid and all the molecular, they are gone since a long time. The only thing that just remain in the forest is probably iron and plastic, but the rest is already in the river. And this is the most important, and it's the most dangerous things that you can find. So we need to get more, to give more attention about this molecular, because we don't see it. What is the difference between these glasses or the other? We don't see it. We need the labs to help this kind of adventure or expedition, because we need to analyze this kind of pollution. And the thing we try to do in our adventure is we are in the tunnel, and at the end, we don't want just to see the darkness. We want to explain that we got light and we got solution. We got solution to get rid of the PFAS. And I was explaining one day on stage, I said, if it's not about environment and ecology that you just care about it, maybe it's about the price that will cost to depolate all this kind of thing. And they calculate it in Europe, it's 2,000 billion euro in the next 20 years. So it will cost a lot of money if we don't care about it. So we need to care right now about this kind of pollution, even if it's not visible.
Yeah, I saw you looking at the water earlier, and I was like, now should we drink that? It doesn't have PFAS in it, so maybe
I have no idea.
I
have no idea. But there's a lab.
Maybe they can test. But yeah, Windi, going to you. What is the thing you want everyone to take away?
Yeah, when I mentioned we need one health approach, but actually in practical it's really tricky, to be honest. It is really hard because in the end, when we work in the practice, right, everyone in silos, because this is my task, this is what I should do. So it's not that I don't care about environment, it's just, for example, a doctor, I need to cure patient, or the veterinarian, I need to cure the animal. So in the practice, it's not easy. And this is one of the reasons, or at least like at Resistomap, one way for us to put in an action, we build a platform, One Health platform, so that different silos here, like from the healthcare, from the veterinary or food producers, also the environmental health, can communicate the same language, like the same measurement, the same comparable method, the same comparable data baseline, so that we can identify whether the source is coming from human, from animals, or it is natural in the environment. And this is, at least from my action now, let's work together, like even though you work on your own silos, because your responsibility, but always like kind of additional task, how can you collaborate with the other sectors? So I think that's the most important. It's coming from ourselves first, by aware that not ignoring, it's not my task, but it's like the collaborative need to be put in ourselves again. Like in the nature, right? We need to collaborate. Yeah, thank you.
More awareness, more collaboration. And Laure, how can we live more organically?
Well, already the first thing is, if you have the purchasing power, eat as much organic as you can. You don't want to die within the 10 years because of antibiotic resistance when you're in hospital. You don't want the tap water to be that expensive. There are several arguments that are for both people from the left and from the right. And I do think that it's possible to eat more organic, a little bit more organic every day, if you just adjust your food and your cooking. We eat that much meat that we can reduce a lot and substitute with lentils, peas. Give peas a chance. That would be already a first. Give organic peas a chance. That would be a key learning. And also, do think about your food. Start on learning cooking, not gastronomy. In France, we have this default of always thinking of extraordinary food. Everyday food should be a contribution. Think of who is your neighbor. If your neighbor with an organic farmer, then it's cooler than if it's not, because when he's doing the treatment and pulverizing everything on the field, you may be stressed. Well, if it's organic, you may be less stressed. So we have to cohabitate peacefully with our neighbors, farming neighbors, also farmers. So please just vote with your wallet. Now that with this conference, you know that organic is really public guaranteed return on investment for every penny you will spend on organic food.
Thank you so much. I think we can all go and eat more peas. And thank you to all our panelists for being on stage with me. We can give them a round of applause. Thank you. Please, you can take your seats for the next segment.